Once again, the Dallas Mavericks and Los Angeles Clippers are going to be matching up in the first round after them having a very exciting first round last year. That series was very memorable, not because the Clippers won, even though they did, it was because of really two things. Luka Doncic going the fuck off, averaging 31, 10, and 9 on 60% true shooting and hitting a game winner, and Paul George doing the opposite of that and having a historically bad first 4 games of the series, averaging 15 points on 17 shots. Another thing people remember is how much the Dallas Mavericks really gave the Clippers a scare in this series, as well as how Porzingis potentially playing for the entire series instead of the just 3 games that he did could have resulted in the Clippers being upset by the Mavs in round 1. So with this series having been as interesting as it was last year and potentially having been able to swing the other way, as well as when you add the context of the changes that these teams have made this year, can the Dallas Mavericks actually pull it off this time around? Can they upset the Los Angeles Clippers? Let's talk about it. Before I continue on with this video, about half of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you fall into that 50%, then please subscribe. Also drop a like on this video, it only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Also, again, just subscribe to this channel if you're looking for playoff content, because I am pumping out playoff content for the playoffs. With that out of the way, let's first address the changes these teams made, and I'm going to make it quick because for the most part, these aren't actually that big. The Mavericks traded Seth Curry for Josh Richardson. Seth averaged 13 points and shot 48% from deep in that Clippers series and hit a lot of big shots. Josh this year has been pretty disappointing as an offensive player, but he's a better defensive player. Outside of that, the team is essentially the same. There's more Jalen Brunson minutes, which I'll imagine will replace the Trey Burke minutes from that series where Trey was actually really good, though I'm sure Trey will get some opportunity. And also Maxi Kleber, who was a pivotal defender in that series, is going to potentially miss a few games here or there. I know he has some sort of injury, and the timetable on that is completely unknown, so that could be a factor as well. For the Clippers, they have Serge Ibaka instead of Montrezl Harrell, who performed terribly in that series because of personal reasons. Rajon Rondo off of the bench, Nick Batum, who has been great for them, no Lou Williams, Luke Kennard replaces Landry Shamet, Patrick Beverley should be healthy for more than just 1 game, and Terrence Mann is decent and might get in the rotation. So, do any of these changes actually make much of a difference? Well, Serge for Harrell and no Lou Williams is definitely a difference, but Rondo could potentially make up that Lou Williams difference and probably will even. So there's a difference, but it's not a huge one. And then Seth Curry for Josh Richardson. I don't like that trade. I kind of was hesitant on it at the time, but I really don't like it in hindsight. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the side of things. The biggest problem for the Mavericks last year was defending Kawhi Leonard, and that's going to be a problem for them once again. Last time they had Maxi Kleber on Kawhi, who actually did a pretty damn solid job not making life easy for him. Kawhi took a lot of mid-range pull-ups that, hey, even though he's very good at them, you'd rather him do that than just get to the basket, but he was making them anyways. So you have to hope that maybe Kawhi just does not have an unconscious series once more like he did at the time, because it didn't matter what Maxey was doing defensively, Kawhi was scoring regardless. I'd go with the Kleber matchup on Kawhi once more. That's kind of obvious. And then I'd do Josh Richardson on Paul George, and that's a little questionable because Josh is probably like 4 to 5 inches shorter than Paul George, but you gotta take what you have, and that's what you have. And really, I'd like to go in more depth in terms of defending this Clippers team, but that's about as deep as it goes. As many roster changes as the Clippers have made, they still have that inherent problem of their offense being overly simplistic. The playmaking has gotten significantly better. Kawhi has taken a leap, and Rondo off of the bench should help there. But it's still not where I'd like it to be, and I think the offense still relies too much on ISO ball and difficult shots. So in terms of how you defend the Clippers, it really comes down to the one-on-one matchups, and I think the Mavericks are getting a passing grade on those one-on-one matchups. but that's about it. And really, same goes for the Clippers side defending the Mavericks, because the Mavericks have a very heliocentric offense entirely based around Luka Doncic. Now, it's not quite as simple because Luka is an elite playmaker, but at the end of the day, everything's going to run through Luka, and that matchup is key. Now, last year, they fucked up that matchup despite having both Kawhi and Paul George, who are two of the best perimeter defenders in the league. So hopefully maybe you get that one right this time in terms of actually winning this series. One thing that they did make a mistake of doing routinely was allowing a switch to happen. Of course, the infamous game winner happened on a switch where Reggie Jackson was put on Luka, and that was just not a good idea. Kawhi very easily could have fought and got the switch to not happen, but he did not, as well as there were multiple times where there ended up being a big man on Luka. That's why Montrezl Harrell was played off of the court, amongst other reasons. So don't switch so much on Luka, because he is just going to abuse whatever switch you give him. Keep Kawhi or PG on him pretty much at all times. As for Porzingis, he's pretty much the wild card of this series for both teams because he is very inconsistent. Of course, he was phenomenal in the 3 games he played versus the Clippers last year, but you really can't bet on that repeating itself. Like, he was ridiculously good in those 3 games, and it is just a 3-game sample size. And really, with Porzingis, he is incredibly hit or miss. One of the most hit or miss players in the league, because how well he performs depends pretty much entirely on whether or not his jump shot is dropping. If KP is having a good game, it's because he's hitting his mid-range pull-ups and those really deep threes. That's it. He's not gonna have a good game defensively. Not that he's a bad defender, but he's not the best one. And he's not gonna make up for a poor shooting night by, I don't know, getting to the paint or playmaking or defending. Really, it's all dependent on if his jump shot is dropping, and if it's not, he's not going to be good for you. But if it is, he's going to be very good for you. So really, that's a complete flip of the coin. But really, that's a complete flip of the coin, and whichever Porzingis you get is really going to determine how this series goes. But with all this said, as for if the Mavericks will be able to repeat what they did last year or even beat the Clippers in this first round matchup, I'm going to go with a no. In fact, I would not be entirely shocked if this ended up being just a 5-game series. The Clippers this time around are more well-rounded and just an overall more together roster. They feel more like a cohesive unit than just an assembly of different basketball talent, which was their biggest issue last year. That's still an issue for them now, but it's not to nearly the degree that it was. With that taken into account, as well as me really not liking the Seth for Josh move that is going to affect the result of this series, and just the simple fact that that series last year relied so heavily on 2 massive outliers for the Mavs to have the level of success they did. And even when they did have those positive outliers, they still lost. Does not give me confidence in them. Paul George playing as historically bad as he did in the first 4 games, as well as Porzingis playing as well as he did in the first 3 games, I don't expect that to repeat itself. Or if it does, it's not something that can really be predicted. Of course, Paul George being complete trash in a playoff series is not unheard of, so that could repeat itself, but I'm not going to bet on it. Porzingis being amazing for a playoff series could happen, but I'm not going to bet on it. So if I'm just simply being a betting man, I'm not going to put my bet into outliers. Outliers are not something you should bet on. Sure, outliers can happen. They happen all the time, and it very well could happen in this series and results in things swinging differently than I am saying. But if the Mavericks win this series, it's going to be because of outliers. Both of these teams, in my opinion, have an overly simple offense. I've been critical of the Clippers for that, and I've said multiple times now that I wish the Dallas Mavericks would acquire a point guard or some sort of playmaker and ball handler who could give Luka a little bit less responsibility, allow Luka to play more off ball, and really just make that offense less heliocentric. But while both of these teams have these flaws, one of these teams also has an elite defense and much better depth. And the other team is the Dallas Mavericks. So I'm going Clippers in 5, possibly 6, and if there's just some crazy outliers, as there was last time, then maybe 7. But I'm still picking the Clippers rather confidently. Hopefully it doesn't bite me in the ass, though. Seriously, Luka, don't take this personally and make me look like a fool, as you've already done on a massive scale previous. But I'm going Clippers in this one. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like, subscribe for more NBA playoff content like this, and cue the outro music.